We're 100% going to talk football. But first, we're going to talk about 91,000 plus Husker fans at Memorial Stadium for women's volleyball.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey gang, DP here, Locked On Huskers, 93.7 The Ticket in Lincoln, Nebraska. Greatly appreciate you making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Thank you. Every day is for hanging out with me. It is appreciated. Click, freeze, hit the subscribe button. Well done. All right, that's how we're going to get this done. Listen, lots to talk about in this episode of Locked On Huskers. I want to prep you for tomorrow's show with Locked On Huskers and Locked On Gophers, a crossover. The Locked On crossover will happen tomorrow. But tonight in Lincoln, Nebraska, 91,000 plus folks will find themselves down at Memorial Stadium on purpose. 91,000 plus. Attempt to break records. Every college volleyball, women's college volleyball record will be broken. Then maybe the whole world would get a new world record for number of fans attending a women's sporting event. The challenge would be, of course, World Cup. But I think somehow, for some reason, I think the numbers will be over 91.8. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yeah, it's going to happen. Kudos to John Cook and this coaching staff. Kudos to Trev Alberts and his staff for making this happen, for all of the satellite companies and teams and universities that are part of this thing. Shout out, even for the first time in the history of Locked On Huskers, I want to shout out Scotty McCreery, who do the post-game concert. Attaboy, Scotty. Attaboy. 91,000 plus. Lots. Look, it's a joyous time, and it is a part of what makes Husker Nation so unique, so special, that they will do this. So finally, again, for all the folks who said, well, women won't support college sports in that way. Well, there are so many doors that are being knocked down today in Lincoln, Nebraska. A lot of the mentality, a lot of the thinking, a lot of the belief, all of that at the hands of Husker Nation. Changing the way the nation talks about, thinks about, and believes in collegiate women's athletics. How about that? How you like that corn? Huh? You like corn? How you like that corn? Well done. Well done, Husker Nation. Listen, in this episode of Locked On Huskers, I also want to focus. We've talked about the players, and the players have so much responsibility and so much in play that they have to focus on. But the reality is that heavy lifting will take place in the coaching staff, and whether it's in the booth, whether it's on the sideline, whether it's in the locker room, whether it's on the flight to Minneapolis, whether it's in the team hotel, whether it's in the walkthrough, whether it's in the hallways and the buildings of Minneapolis. That this Matt Rhule and this coaching staff, they have some deep responsibilities and some deep concerns. They've spent months trying to figure out who the people are that they have in this program, so that they then can find out and develop the players that are on this team and in this program, and all the while trying to create a team that can find immediate success in the Big Ten Conference when it comes to football. And they don't have a very long runway. It's Thursday in Minneapolis. And the task is at hand. The job needs to be done. For Matt Rhule, a lot of this is branding and presentation. He's spoken that, I'm not as interested in the fast start as I am in the great finish, and that we're playing better in the fourth quarter than we do early in games. Me personally, I kind of shrugged my shoulders at that, but I understood what he meant. You want to get better. Day by day, play by play. That's the whole point. At the end of the game, that this Nebraska team will be better than it was at the start of the game. That's 100% true. If done well, look, the experience, there are players who do not have experience. There are coaches who have not coached this group together. There are players who have not played together. There are players who have never played in the Big Ten Conference, certainly never played in Minnesota. So there are a lot of moving parts. And the coaching staff, Matt Rhule and his coaching staff, they have to be the steadying to the ship. They have to be the foundation. They have to be the root of the corn. They have to build this thing at its core so that these young men who are going to take the field in Minneapolis have a plan. They're prepared. They won't see anything that they haven't seen. They won't hear anything they haven't heard. And they won't be asked to do anything that hadn't been coached or taught. And the confidence level of Matt Rhule and his coaching staff will be on display, whether they believe in the work that they put in. And that's important. Does this coaching staff believe in the work that they put in from now until kickoff? And then are they able to adjust? New coaching staffs have an issue. And it is the end game verbal that can throw a coaching staff into the deep end without a paddle and no boat. Being able to communicate for the first time in front of the 50+ thousand that'll be there in Minneapolis. Who's going to be upstairs? Because remember that this is the first time that coaches won't all be on the sideline and they won't have access to their players, that there's new technology in play. Right? There are computer screens and that be used for teaching and coaching and screen grabs. All of that, all of the walkie-talkies, all of the headphones, all of the headset. That's the first time that this is in full, that this coaching staff will have it in absolute full on the road. They did it at home. They did the walkthrough to see whether, okay, this is how we're going to go out and this is where we're going to line up and can you communicate and does it work? But the moment you take it on the road for the first time, things happen on the road in the Big Ten Conference. Somehow little gremlins show up and the wires come up missing or a headset's missing or it's misidentified. There's a wrong name taped on the headset and you have a defensive coach with an offensive coach headset and they're off the channel and they can't get communication. Like there's all sorts of stuff. So this is what Matt Rhule has to deal with. From the meals that are outside of his control, from the sleeping arrangements that are outside of his control, the outside factors. First time that this group of young men as a team will go out of town and have to deal with tickets. They'll have to deal with emails. They'll have to deal with cell phones. They'll have to deal with fans. They'll have to deal with groupies. They'll have to deal with boosters. They'll have to deal with parents this is their first rodeo, so they're not sure about all the things that are in play. And Matt Rhule has to have full control of everything. His biggest help is two coordinators. We'll talk about Tony White, Marcus Satterfield. We'll talk about them when we come back to Lockdown. Once again, gang, thank you. I'm DP. That's what it says right there. Lockdown Huskers, and I appreciate you. Again, the off-season journey of getting to today and getting to game 1, week 0, game 1, which they need to fix, by the way. There is no week 0. It's week 1. Stop it. Doesn't make Anyway, it makes no sense to me. This is week 1. Stop it. Matt Rhule and his mission is to get his group as prepared for everything that they can control the controllables, right? To work on all the things, the machinations and the technology, get all of that done. And then you can deal with the people. And the management side of this thing for Matt Rhule is you have two coordinators who are responsible for 80%, 90% of your production. 10% probably the special teams, personnel, the management of said personnel. No special teams personnel situation is the same as the previous time, even if it's back-to-back extra points. It's still different. Each case is different because it will be pressure different, lineup different, etc. But for offense, I want to say that if you're Marcus Satterfield, you are in the deep, deep, deep film dive into what Minnesota has done, and you have some tracking to what they've done defensively. But then it becomes a matter of, what does Minnesota want to take away from Nebraska's offense? Is it a player that they want to take away? Is it a part of the scheme that they want to be able to defend effectively? And if you asked me, it's a 1 or 2, 1A, 1B sort of answer. That Marcus Satterfield has to make the decision on what his focus is going to be offensively. Who is, you ready for this? And you can put your comments down in the comment section, but I'm going to ask you this question. Go with me here. I can measure a team offensively by answering this question. These two questions, actually. 1, who is the best offensive player on Nebraska? Who is the best offensive player on Nebraska? 2, or 1B, what is going to be the best play for Nebraska offensively? What's going to be the go-to? What is the thing that finding your best player and getting that player the ball in the best situation and circumstance is the core premise behind offensive football, especially in the Big Ten? Who's the best player on this Nebraska football team offensively? Are we sure? Because the answer may be somebody that we haven't seen in a Nebraska uniform, and it may be somebody that we haven't seen play much at all. If you said to me that Gabe Ervin was the best offensive player, you might not be wrong. If you said Jeff Sims, you might not be wrong. If you said Billy Kemp IV, you might not be wrong. Or if you said Ben Scott or Teddy Prohaska or Nori, you might not be wrong. But the reality is Marcus Satterfield has to identify where his talent is offensively, and then he has to highlight that player and put that player in a position to have the most success against Minnesota tonight. And we don't have that answer. How can you attack Minnesota? What is Minnesota's weaknesses? These are the things that Marcus Satterfield is going through his head. How can I attack them? What can we do well enough? Are there matchups up front? Is Teddy Prohaska healthy? Is he a part of the rotation? Is the communication between a brand new center and a brand new quarterback in a brand new location, Ben Scott communicating blitz and audibles to Jeff Sims, who has to read it in front of an entire crowd of Minnesota Gopher fans? Has Marcus Satterfield communicated the audibles and the different calls, the communication to help Jeff Sims know what he's going to see and then be able to get in and out of bad situations? Take those bad situations and audible into good situations. And then make sure that the personnel on the field that you don't know about. We don't know what Joshua Fleeks is going to bring to the table for the Huskers tonight. We don't know what Alex Bullock is going to bring to the table tonight. Who's the best player, and how do you get them the ball? Here's another question for you, offensive gearheads. Please help me out here. How many points are going to be required by this Nebraska offense for them to come home with a win? Because Marcus Satterfield has to figure out that number and then figure out his best player and then figure out his best plays so that he can achieve those numbers. That's the process. Who's my best player? What's the best play that we can run the most effectively, the most efficiently, to the greatest number of success against Minnesota's defense, no matter down and distance? And without that information, you're really just spitting into the wind and hoping it doesn't hit you in the face. Marcus Satterfield has a busy afternoon, a busy evening getting prepared. He and Matt Rhule are sitting in their minds together trying to figure out how can we attack this Minnesota defense? What levels of success can we have? What is our best play? What are our best two plays? Who's the player that when the rubber meets the road, whose name and number do we call? Whether it's Jeff Sims, Anthony Grant, Gabe Irvin, Billy Kemp, Marcus Washington, Thomas Fidone, doesn't matter. We're going to find out answers. We're going to find out answers in Minneapolis. We'll come back. We'll talk about Tony White. He's got some decisions to make too. And if you're hoping for a prediction, ain't happening. We'll be right back. Yes, sir. Game day in Minneapolis. Huskers, Gophers, Matt Rhule, PJ Fleck. Ethan Kaliak-Manis versus Jeff Sims. Oh, we got dudes. You got the 5 defensive backs and a pool of 9 defenders against those 6 Minnesota elite receivers. Finding out who the best running back on the field will be, which defensive line and which offensive line will save the day for their head coaches and their coordinators. Tony White has questions today, and he's got to figure out these things. What is his rotation defensively? Who holds up? Can he stay healthy? What's the place in which Nick Henrich and Luke Reimer look over at John Bullock and Isaac Gifford and give them information? What can Tony White do to make sure that his first-time starters don't get out of hand, that they don't get out of sync, that they don't get lost in the wash? Communication will be vital for this defense. You've got new players and new situations. Hey, don't forget, this is the first time Nebraska's rolled out in a 3-3-5 defense in the Big Ten Conference. So guess what? We have no idea what it's going to come out, but we hope that Tony White does, that he has a plan, that he has some idea about what personnel he can. How does he use Javen Wright? How does he use MJ Sherman? How much can he get from Cam? How much can he expect from Blaise Gunnerson? Is he asking too much? Does Judy get off the bench and get on the field? How much work can Ty Robinson give you? What does Nash Hutmacher do in the chaos that is Big Ten running football? These are all questions in play, and Tony White has some pieces, but he's going to have to play chess at a high level, at a high frequency, and a high volume, in a strange place, strange location, new players, new situation and circumstance. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. The one thing that gives me so much belief in this Nebraska team is Tony White. And listening to his players, listening to him tell you the story about his plan of attack, his use of purpose, that he's able to be mission focused, and that he's simply trying to find the pieces to do the best things for his players against Minnesota. And not that I'm a betting man, but if I were, I could ride that Tony White has some answers to all those questions. He's got a plan. Ultimately, though, and truthfully, it will come down to those players and whether they're able to execute. Chief Borders is a name that'll be flown about the Big Ten Conference just because of the way he plays tonight against Minnesota. John Bullock can make a name. Isaac Gifford can make a name. We'll watch Deshaun. We'll watch Malcolm Hartzog. We'll watch Omar Brown. We'll see Tommy Hill. We'll get to know Billy Kemp. We'll get to see Teddy Prohaska in uniform. And then most importantly, maybe the most important thing of it all, we'll get introduced to, and in no particular order, Jeff Sims, Marcus Satterfield, Tony White, and Matt Rhule. For the Huskers, as the Huskers, about the Huskers. We'll know more after Minneapolis. Get your thinking caps on, get your color ready, get your Kool-Aid prepared. It's football time in America. More importantly, football time in Minneapolis for the Huskers and Gophers. We'll close it with the 3 words we love so much. First, I say thank you for making Locked On Huskers the first watch and listen each and every single day. But as we hope to chant and cheer as loudly as we can, as often as we can, go Big Red.